Straight.
There's a day that stands out that I'm sure you know what it is. June 14th, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you hurt your knee going into the dugout. The guy was shooting the baseball field up. Steve Scalise was hit with bullets. Tell us about that happening.
Well, that was a life changer for all of us. I'm amazed that when I travel all over the country, people still remember that event. They tell me, I remember where I was when I heard about the baseball shooting. We were practicing in Arlington, Virginia at the YMCA there for the congressional baseball game that was going to be the next night. And a fella came up to two people in the parking lot and said, "Who is that?" And they said, "It's the Republicans baseball team practicing." And so that's what he wanted to know. So he came on in, and I was hitting ground balls to Scalise. I was hitting ground balls to him, and not knowing that this guy was probably 20 yards from me with an AK-47. And I hit my last ball to Scalise, and all of a sudden a pop went off, and it sounded like you've heard people say that it sounded like a car backfiring. That was my first initiative. But then Trent Kelly, who plays third base for us, a former Marine, yelled, "He's got a gun, head for cover." And then he started shooting again, and my brain just took me to the dugout. And fortunately, the dugout was an old-time dugout that literally was in the ground like they used to be. It wasn't flat like they make now. And I dove into the dugout head first, and it was like diving in a swimming pool with no water. And I ended up with four of my colleagues in the dugout as he was firing in the dugout. And I actually got hit twice with shrapnel in my ankle. And then we heard that Scalise was down and other people were down. My aide got hit in the leg, and he came all the way from the right field foul line to the dugout and dove in my arms. He didn't know I was in there. The whole thing lasted 10 minutes. And we had two Capitol Police with us, and we did not hear them firing at all. There's a difference between an AK-47 and a 9mm, as you all know. Yeah. We didn't hear them firing. We thought they had been killed. And this guy was just coming around to where five of us were in the dugout, some behind cars, this and that. And those of us in the dugout made our mind up. If he came around, we were going to charge him. And some would win, some would lose on that, but at least we'd stop him. The whole thing lasted 10 minutes, which is a long time. And finally, the Alexandria police came, and we were hoping we'd hear sirens, and we heard them after 4 minutes of the shooting. Anyway, they came, and 6 minutes later, we were able to kill this guy. They shot him 22 times. And so you had the two agents were shot. I was hit twice with shrapnel. Scalise was shot. My aide was shot. And Matt Micah, a dear young man, actually was shot 3 times. And he was an aide that was there helping. So anyway, long story short, just last week they released a story on it. The National Archives did. They deemed it a national historical moment, because if it had gone the other way, if God hadn't been in charge, 25 of us would have all been killed.
Right.
And you would have had a change in power, and it would have been the largest killing of congressional people in the history of our country. But it didn't happen that way because God was in charge. And it worked out pretty good, but it's life changing. And you realize how short life is when something like that's happening. And I have people ask me, Tommy, they say, "Were you afraid of dying?" And when I was in that dugout with 5 of my colleagues, I wasn't afraid of dying. It was amazing. But I did remember 2 things. I've always told my family at my funeral, I want the song, "Put Me in, Coach, I'm Ready to Play." I want that played. And it went through my mind that 2 things. I hope that they remembered I'd asked that. And number 2 is we had a grandbaby coming in 3 months. I wanted to make sure I saw that grandbaby. So, the Lord works in wonderful ways, but he has his arm around all of us. He decided to let the result be what it was and not something different. And the 2 agents totally were unbelievable in keeping him away from getting to where we all were. They are real heroes and so forth. So that was that day. I wear a bracelet now that I had given all my teammates, and it has the date and the words "In God We Trust" on it. I have a bracelet. I've never taken it off since that day.
Yeah. God is great.
Yep.
Caught in the line of fire today and injured as a result of what happened on that baseball field are Congressman Roger Williams, whose district, if you didn't know, runs from Fort Worth all the way south to Austin. Also, his staffer, Andrew Mitchell. Both of them happen to be standouts at TCU when it comes to baseball history at the university. Ken Molestina live over there tonight on the campus with thoughts from current team members. Ken?
Yeah, that's right, Doug. You know, Roger Williams played here back in the 60s, and as you mentioned, he's somewhat of a legend here. This field is partially named after him. As for Mitchell, he played here up to 2013 when he was drafted to go pro. So you could just imagine the news of that shooting in Virginia earlier today hit very close to home.
I woke up this morning getting ready at about 6:30 and saw it on the news, and immediately I knew exactly that Roger had to have been there, and Andrew Mitchell as well.
TCU baseball coach Jim Schlossnagle says he immediately texted former player Andrew Mitchell to ask what was going on. When the shooting was over, both Mitchell and Congressman Williams walked away with minor injuries. Later in the day, the congressman used crutches to get up to a podium and talk about the shooting.
There could have easily been 25 deaths or more today. I think we had 25 team players and about 15 staff. But Officers Griner and Bailey prevented that, and my family and I will be forever grateful.
He choked up as he recalled the heroic efforts by Capitol Police officers to keep them safe. Here at TCU, the entire team had both Williams and Mitchell on their minds as they prepared to head off to the College World Series. Williams was an all-conference player for the Horned Frogs in the 60s and a proud lifelong TCU alum who is credited for helping save their baseball program.
Roger led a fundraising effort along with the athletic director, Eric Hyman, at the time, and he helped build this stadium, and we're eternally grateful.
Williams is serving as a coach for the Republican congressional baseball team and says the game will be played.
This is a game that's been going on for over 100 years. It goes to charity, and we need to play this baseball game.
And Williams says after that game is played tomorrow, he will fly back home here to Texas. He says he wants his doctor here in Texas to take another look at his injured ankle because, in his words, he needs him to fix him up. We're live in Fort Worth. Ken Molestina.
Straight.